As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. You ever sit still in a room full of noise, not just outside noise, cars honking, phones ringing, people shouting. I'm talking about that inner noise, the racing thoughts, the doubts, the fear, that voice inside that says you're not enough, that says you're too late, too broken, too far gone to ever rise, that voice that keeps you frozen when you were built to move. That noise, it's real, but what's even more real, more powerful, more life-changing is the stillness behind it. The stillness you can only reach when you learn to master your mind. Now listen, you don't master your mind by accident. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have the kind of discipline that moves mountains. No, you build it. You chisel it. You bleed for it. And you start by realizing something most people never figure out. The battlefield is not out there. It's not your job, not your bank account, not your past. The real war is between your ears. You want to change your life, you better start with your thoughts. You better take control of the conversation that's happening in your own head, because that voice, it can be your enemy or your best friend. It can tell you you're defeated before you even try, or it can tell you to stand up one more time after you've been knocked down 10. It can whisper dreams or scream doubt. The choice is yours. But let me be clear. This ain't easy. Focus and discipline are muscles. And like any muscle, they don't grow unless you push them past comfort, past fatigue, past the point where most people quit. You want to be uncommon? Then do what common people won't do. Wake up early. Stay consistent. Say no when everyone else is saying yes. Stop chasing pleasure and start pursuing purpose. See, too many folks are addicted to distractions, addicted to validation, addicted to comfort, but greatness doesn't live in comfort. Greatness lives in that place where it's just you, your vision, and your will to keep showing up, even when nobody's clapping, even when nobody believes in you, even when your own faith starts to shake. That's where mastery is born. Self-focus is not selfish, it's survival. If you don't take the time to get clear on who you are, what you value, and what you're here to do, the world will do it for you. It'll label you, it'll define you, it'll pull you in 1,000 directions, and you'll spend your life running but never arriving. You have to become the architect of your own mind. You have to design your days like your future depends on it, because it does. Every decision you make, every habit you feed, every thought you allow, those are bricks. Bricks that are either building the life you want or the prison you're stuck in. So you've got to decide, are you building or are you trapping yourself? Are you reacting or are you creating? Are you surviving or are you mastering? Let me tell you something I've learned. When you get focused, life gets quiet. And that silence, it can be deafening because it forces you to face you. No more excuses, no more distractions, just you and the truth. You see all the ways you've been lying to yourself, all the corners you've been cutting, all the dreams you've buried under fear. But that's also where the power lies, because when you face the truth, you can finally change it. Discipline ain't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about saying, I will show up for myself even when I don't feel like it. It's about honoring the commitment you made when the fire was hot, even when the fire starts to fade. Anybody can be motivated for a moment, but discipline, that's love. That's real love. That's saying, I got you to yourself day after day, rain or shine, failure or success. You want to know who you are? Watch what you do when nobody's watching. Watch how you talk to yourself when the plan falls apart. Watch how you respond when things don't go your way. That's where your character is revealed. That's where your mind gets tested. And that's where the strongest people rise. Because strong people aren't just built in the gym or in boardrooms or on stages. They're built in the quiet, in the moments where it would have been easy to quit, but they didn't. In the moments where they wanted to give up, but they dug deeper. They got still. They got focused. They said, no, not today, not now, not me. You can't afford to wait for the world to push you. You can't wait for someone to hold your hand and walk you into your destiny. That's your job. You want transformation? Then get serious, get committed, get focused. Because let me tell you something. Focus is a superpower in a world full of noise. Focus separates the talkers from the doers. Focus turns potential into power. And discipline is the vehicle that gets you there. Talent will give you a head start, but discipline will finish the race every single time. I don't care how smart you are, how gifted you are, how many likes you get. If you don't have the discipline to wake up every day and do the work, the world will pass you by. You see, the mind is like a wild horse. Left alone, it'll run in circles. It'll chase every impulse. But when you learn to grab the reins, when you learn to guide it, to direct it, to command it, then you become dangerous. Then you become a force. Because now your energy isn't scattered. Now your life isn't reactive. Now your purpose isn't a someday thing, it's an everyday thing. Let the others chase quick results. Let the others be ruled by their moods. You choose consistency. You choose purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort, long-term vision over short-term relief. That's how you change the game. But hear me on this. Focus and discipline are not destination. They're decisions, daily decisions. Every day you wake up and choose, will I lead my mind today or will I let it lead me? Because if you don't program your mind, the world will. And the world doesn't care about your peace, your growth, or your destiny. The world just wants your attention. Don't give it away so cheap. You got to protect your focus like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. You got to guard your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. You stop apologizing for prioritizing your peace. See, when you master your mind, you no longer chase people. You no longer beg for approval. You stop trying to be everything for everybody. You stop trying to be everything for everybody, because now you're rooted. Now you know who you are. Now you know where you're going. And people will feel that. They'll either be drawn to it or intimidated by it. But either way, you stay focused. And when the storms come, and they will, you won't fold because you're grounded. You've trained for this. You've disciplined yourself, and your foundation is strong. That's the power of self-mastery. That's the reward of discipline, because in the end, it ain't about how loud you are, how flashy you look, how many people follow you. It's about how solid you are when no one's watching. It's about how you handle pressure, how you keep your head when everything's falling apart, how you stay focused in a world that's always trying to pull you off course. That's what separates those who dream from those who do. That's what builds legacy. And that's what makes you unstoppable. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. You see, most people want the crown, but they're not willing to carry the cross. They want the spotlight, but not the silence that comes before it. They want the reward, but they run from the routine. They want to shine, but they refuse the grind. And that's why so few people ever become who they were truly meant to be, because they won't pay the price of self-discipline. They won't stand in the fire long enough to be refined. But if you want to master your mind, you've got to be willing to go through what most people avoid. There will be days when you feel like you're walking alone, days when your efforts go unseen, when your sacrifices go unappreciated, days when your goals feel 1,000 miles away and all you've got is your will to keep going. That's where the real battle begins. That's where you find out who you really are, not when everything's going right, not when you're winning, but when you're in the middle of the storm and you choose to stay grounded, stay focused, stay disciplined. Discipline doesn't show up as motivation. It shows up as action when you don't feel like moving. It's you saying, I made a promise to myself and I'm not breaking it. Not for a bad mood, not for a bad day, not for anybody. Because if you can't keep your word to yourself, who can you keep it to? That's the test. Not whether you can work when it's easy, but whether you can stay locked in when everything in you wants to quit. Focus is about direction. Discipline is about execution. Together they shape destiny, but they don't come to you wrapped up in comfort. They come dressed in repetition, in early mornings, in late nights, in sacrifices nobody sees, in conversations with yourself where you remind your spirit that it's stronger than your excuses. You've got to be so locked in that distractions start to look like disrespect. You've got to be so focused that average people feel uncomfortable around your commitment. You've got to love yourself enough to say no to temporary pleasure because you know permanent progress is more valuable. And yeah, it'll be lonely sometimes. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because very few people are willing to do the internal work required to elevate. And when you start rising, you can't take everybody with you. Some folks will want the old you, the one who played small, who dimmed their light, who made excuses, but you're not that version anymore. You've evolved. You've made a choice to rise. And with that choice comes responsibility to stay sharp, to stay consistent, to manage your time like it's sacred, because it is. See, every minute wasted on things that don't matter is a minute stolen from your purpose. Every time you scroll instead of study, complain instead of create, react instead of reflect, you delay your own breakthrough. Your time is your most precious currency. Spend it with intention, protect it like a treasure, because once it's gone, it ain't coming back. Let's be real. The road of self-mastery isn't a straight path. It's filled with setbacks, mistakes, and moments where you question everything. But even those moments are part of the training. Failure is feedback, pain is a teacher, struggle is a sculptor. All of it is shaping you, sharpening you, preparing you for the next level. But only if you don't run, only if you stay present, only if you remain focused long enough to learn what the moment came to teach you. There's a version of you that only shows up when life gets hard. A deeper, stronger, wiser you. And most people never meet that version because they quit too soon. They fold under pressure. But pressure isn't there to break you, it's there to reveal you. It's there to strip away the fluff, the ego, the distractions, and leave behind the core of who you really are. And when you've got focus and discipline, you don't fear that process, you welcome it, because you know every storm is making you more resilient. Every test is strengthening your foundation. You want power? Then take responsibility for your thoughts, for your choices, for your energy. Stop blaming the world. Stop waiting on circumstances. Start leading yourself. Leadership starts with self. If you can't lead your emotions, your time, your energy, how can you expect to lead your life? How can you expect doors to open when you're not even willing to knock with consistency? And don't get it twisted. This isn't about hustle culture. This isn't about being busy for the sake of being busy. This is about alignment. It's about saying, I will move with purpose. I will live with intention. I will master the one thing I can always control, myself. Because once you do that, there is no situation you can't face, no mountain you can't climb, no setback that can shake your foundation. You become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. And when you get stronger, life starts to respond differently. You walk different, you talk different, you attract different. Why? Because energy don't lie. People can feel when you're disciplined. They can feel when you're focused. They can feel when you're clear about who you are and where you're going. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to prove it. You become it. See, the mind can either be your prison or your passport, your cage or your compass, your downfall or your deliverance. It all depends on whether you take control or keep giving it away. To fear, to comparison, to comfort, to other people's opinions. You can't master your mind if you're still seeking validation. You can't walk in purpose if you've got to be willing to disappoint some folks, to not disappoint yourself. You've got to be willing to be misunderstood for the sake of your mission. There's a certain kind of peace that comes when you realize you don't have to chase anything or anyone. You just have to stay locked into your lane, stay rooted in your growth, stay committed to your calling. Because when you master your mind, you stop reacting to everything. You stop chasing every trend. You stop getting distracted by noise. You start hearing that still small voice within you that says, keep going. You're on the right path. Don't quit now. The world will offer you 1,000 ways to escape yourself, but you've got to choose to go deeper, deeper into self-awareness, deeper into discipline, deeper into the uncomfortable spaces where real transformation lives. You want change? Then get real with yourself. What habits are keeping you stuck? What stories are you telling yourself that no longer serve you? What environment are you in? And is it helping you grow or keeping you small? Your future isn't waiting for a miracle. It's waiting for your decision, your commitment, your discipline, and your focus. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for someone to hand you an opportunity. Create one, build one, show up so consistently and so excellently that doors have no choice but to open, but it starts inside, always inside. Mastering your mind is a daily grind, a moment by moment decision to choose faith over fear, discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, long-term vision over short-term gratification. It's a daily fight, but it's a fight worth showing up for. You might not see the results right away. You might not get applause, but every day you stay focused, every time you choose discipline over impulse, every time you move with intention, you're getting better, stronger, sharper. And eventually the world will catch up. It always does. But by then you won't need it to. Because you'll already know who you are. You'll already know where you're going. And nothing, no obstacle, no delay, no failure will be able to stop you. Because when you master your mind, you unlock everything. You unlock freedom, peace, clarity, power, purpose. And once you've tasted that, nothing else will ever satisfy. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. And once you've tasted that kind of power, the kind that doesn't come from applause, doesn't come from money, titles, or praise, you can never go back to living on autopilot. You can never go back to shrinking yourself for comfort or numbing your truth for the sake of approval, because now you know, now you've seen it. The clarity that comes when you cut the noise, the strength that rises when you stop betraying yourself, the confidence that builds when you finally stop outsourcing your worth to start building it from the inside. Mastering your mind doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means fear doesn't control your decisions. It doesn't get the final word. You look fear in the eye and say, I see you, but I'm not bowing to you. You acknowledge the doubt, but you don't sit in it. You hear the voice that says, what if you fail? But then you remind it, what if I fly? You train your thoughts to align with your vision, not your insecurities. And that takes work, consistent, conscious work. You have to wake up every day and choose your mindset the same way you choose your clothes, with intention, with care. Because your mindset is your uniform. It tells the world how you show up. And showing up, that's the beginning of everything. Half of success is just deciding not to disappear. Not to disappear when it gets hard, not to disappear when it gets lonely, not to disappear when you don't have all the answers. You show up broken, you show up tired, you show up unsure, but you show up anyway. That's discipline. That's the secret most people overlook. You don't have to have it all figured out to be faithful to the process. You just have to keep showing up and trusting that consistency compounds. Small steps repeated over time build unshakable momentum. Too many people think mastery is about perfection. It's not. It's about direction. It's about movement. It's about saying, I may not be there yet, but I'm further than I was yesterday. And when you keep showing up like that, when you refuse to let your emotions dictate your actions, when you stay rooted in your mission, no matter what comes at you, you start to notice something powerful. The world starts to adjust to your standard. The chaos doesn't shake you like it used to. The noise gets quieter. The distractions lose their grip because you're grounded now, because your mind is under your command. The most powerful person in the room is not the loudest, not the flashiest. It's the one who has mastered themselves. The one who can stay calm in a storm. The one who can listen more than they speak. The one who can delay gratification, who doesn't need immediate results to stay motivated. Because that person is dangerous in the best way. They can't be manipulated by trends or opinions. They don't crumble under pressure. They don't need to prove anything because their life is the proof. And how do you become that person? Through daily disciplines that seem small but carry weight, through choosing routine over randomness, through waking up and making your bed, not because it changes the world, but because it says, I'm in control, through journaling, meditating, praying, planning, not because you have to, but because you've learned that clarity is your compass. You've realized that chaos on the outside is usually a mirror of chaos on the inside. So you clean up your inner world first. You organize your thoughts, you align your values, you define what success actually means to you, not what the world says, not what the culture dictates, but what resonates in your soul. And from that place, everything changes. You begin to live on purpose, not by accident. You stop chasing things just to impress people you don't even know. You stop living from lack and start living from vision. And vision, when paired with discipline, is because vision gives you direction and discipline gives you the endurance to walk it out. You don't just dream it, you execute it. And you do it without needing cheerleaders, without needing the crowd. You become your own source of motivation. But motivation is fleeting. That's why you need habits, systems, standards, things that keep you locked in even when the fire dies down. The real ones don't just work when they feel inspired, they work because it's who they are. They've internalized their goal so deeply that showing up is no longer a choice. It's a natural extension of their identity. And that's what mastery does. It turns effort into instinct. It transforms struggle into flow. But the transition is hard. It's uncomfortable. Growth always is. You're going to have to let go of who you were to become who you're meant to be. And that version of you, the elevated version, is disciplined. They say no when it's inconvenient. They rest without guilt. They push without apology. They understand that rest and grind are not enemies, they're partners. Discipline teaches you when to move and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait. It's not just about doing more, it's about doing what matters with precision and purpose. You have to learn to be okay with being misunderstood. Not everyone will get why you're changing. Not everyone will applaud your boundaries, your silence, your solitude. But remember, most people are reacting to life. You're designing it. And design requires vision. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to good so you can say yes to great. You've got to train your mind to think long-term in a short-term world. Everyone wants success fast. Few want success that lasts. But lasting success is built brick by brick, choice by choice. You've got to audit your environment. Who are you around? What are you consuming? What are you allowing into your mind, your heart, your soul? Because everything you feed yourself is either fueling your discipline or feeding your destruction. You can't expect focus when your life is full of clutter. You can't expect clarity when your time is being stolen by distractions. Simplify, declutter, choose fewer but better. That's how you reclaim your power. That's how you become sharper. And you've got to be patient with yourself in the process. You're not always going to get it right. There will be setbacks. You'll fall short. You'll miss the mark. But mastery isn't about never falling. It's about always rising. It's about learning the lesson and getting back up faster each time. The goal is progress, not perfection. Just don't let the slip become a spiral. Don't let a bad day convince you that you have a bad life. Get up, reset, refocus, keep moving. There's a part of you that knows exactly what you need to do. You don't need another motivational quote. You don't need a new productivity hack. You need discipline. You need to stop negotiating with your potential. Stop delaying the version of you that's waiting on the other side of commitment. If it matters to you, then act like it, show up like it, move like it. Because when you finally realize that you are the only one responsible for your life, your peace, your power, your progress, everything shifts. You stop blaming. You stop waiting. You start creating. You start becoming. You start leading. And your life begins to reflect what you always knew deep down, that you were never meant to live small. You were never meant to be average. You were always meant to master your mind and through it, master your life. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. And when you get to that place where your mind no longer leads you, but you lead your mind, everything opens up. Suddenly, you're not just reacting to life, you're responding with wisdom. You're not running from hard things, you're leading into them. You're not wasting energy trying to control other people. You're channeling that energy into building your foundation. And let me tell you, when a person learns how to be at peace within themselves, when they can sit in silence and be proud of who they are, how they think, and how they move, that's a person who's truly mastered the game. See, when you shift your focus inward, you stop playing small, you stop settling, you stop needing the outside world to validate what you already know in your soul. You start showing up with a quiet confidence that doesn't scream for attention, it commands respect. And people may not always understand it. They'll say, you changed. They'll say, you got distant. But what they don't see is that you didn't get distant, you got dedicated. You don't lose your way, you found your focus. You didn't build walls, you built boundaries. And boundaries, my friend, are a product of self-respect. People talk a lot about freedom, but they rarely mention that discipline is the price of true freedom, because you can't be free if you're a prisoner to your impulses. You can't be free if your emotions dictate your decisions. You can't be free if every setback breaks your spirit. Freedom isn't found in doing what you want when you feel like it. It's found in becoming the type of person who does what's right, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, even when it doesn't feel good in the moment, because you know the harvest is coming. You know that seeds take time. You know that nothing worth having comes without intentional effort. You've got to be willing to trade comfort for calling. You've got to be willing to feel awkward, to feel unsure, to walk into rooms where you're not the most talented or the most prepared, but you outwork everybody because your focus is different. Your drive is not about proving something to others. It's about proving something to yourself. That you won't quit on yourself again, that you won't shrink for the sake of fitting in, that you won't betray your dreams just to avoid discomfort. There's a certain power that comes when you keep the promises you make to yourself. It builds trust, it builds resilience, and most importantly, it builds identity. Because identity isn't just what you say, it's what you do consistently. You're not what you say you'll do, you're what you repeatedly do. That's why habits matter. That's why discipline matters. Because they create the framework that your identity lives inside. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you show up when it's easier to stay in bed, every time you speak life over your future instead of doubt, every time you protect your peace instead of chasing drama, you're reinforcing a new identity. And that identity, that's what carries you when motivation runs out. That's what anchors you when storms hit. That's what lifts you when life tries to drag you back into old patterns. You have to decide, are you going to be the kind of person who talks about change or the one who embodies it? Are you going to live your life by default or by design? Because design requires thought, requires structure, requires you to be intentional with your energy, your time, your circle. You can't build a masterpiece with messy hands. You can't build a legacy while clinging to your limits. You've got to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it's familiar, even if it's comfortable, even if it's people. Because not everyone who started with you can finish with you, and that's okay. Some people were only meant to be part of your becoming, not your becoming fully. You're not obligated to stay the same to keep others comfortable. Growth will offend the stagnant. Your elevation will expose their excuses. And that's not your burden to carry. Your responsibility is to honor your calling, protect your peace, and walk in your purpose with discipline and grace. And let me tell you something else. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're building. You're learning. You're evolving. The process might be messy, but that doesn't mean it's not sacred. The struggle might be heavy, but that doesn't mean you're not strong. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 30. Stop measuring your journey by the highlight reel of others. This is your race, your path, your mission, and every step you take in focus and discipline brings you closer to the life you were born to live. You got to learn to sit with yourself. Really sit, not with your phone, not with distractions, but just you and your thoughts. Because in that space, you hear the truth. You see the gaps. You identify the habits, the beliefs, the narratives that have kept you playing small. And once you see them, you can choose differently. You can reframe, you can release, you can realign. But you can't heal what you won't acknowledge, and you can't master what you won't face. The mind is a powerful force. It will build your future or bury your potential. It will serve you or sabotage you, and the difference lies in how you train it. Do you feed it fear or faith? Distraction or direction? Chaos or clarity? The mind will mirror whatever you pour into it, and when you fill it with purpose, with vision, with discipline, you become unstoppable. But let's not sugarcoat it. It's hard. It's hard to wake up early when nobody's watching. It's hard to keep going when results are delayed. It's hard to say no to things that used to comfort you, but you've got to choose your hard. Because staying stuck is hard too. Living in regret is hard. Watching your potential rot is hard. So if you're going to struggle anyway, struggle for something that matters. Struggle for growth, struggle for peace, struggle for purpose, and trust that the seeds you're planting will bloom if you don't give up. Some days you'll be on fire. Other days you'll feel like the fire went out. That's normal. That's human. But even on the days when you don't feel it, show up. Even on the days when you're tired, honor the commitment. Even on the days when no one claps, clap for yourself, because that's the real power. Not just to perform when it's easy, but to persist when it's not. To grind in the dark, knowing the light is coming. And when it does come, you'll be ready, not because you got lucky, but because you were disciplined. There's nothing more powerful than a focused mind and a disciplined spirit. Nothing. Not talent, not connections, not even resources. Because a focused and disciplined person will find a way, build the door, create the path. They won't wait to be chosen. They'll choose themselves. They won't wait for inspiration. They'll create momentum. And eventually the world catches on. But by then it's just confirmation, not validation. That's where your power lives. In the invisible places, in the quiet decisions, in the ordinary moments that build extraordinary lives. Master your mind, and everything else falls in line. Not because it gets easier, but because you get better. And that is the real goal. Not perfection, not applause, not fame, but becoming so rooted in who you are and where you're going that nothing can shake you. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. So when it's all said and done, it's not about the noise, the recognition, or the spotlight. It's about what you built in silence. It's about how you trained your mind to rise above doubt, to stay the course when everything around you tried to pull you off track. It's about the strength you developed by choosing discipline when distraction came dressed like opportunity. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to be committed. Committed to showing up for yourself, committed to choosing focus over fear, committed to becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream, but executes. That's what it means to master your mind. And once you do that, there's no limit to what you can create, who you can become, or what kind of legacy you'll leave behind. Keep going. Stay locked in. You're built for this